For me, one of the key parts of driving pleasure is the sound my car makes as I'm driving it. Yes, it's got to look good. Yes, it's got to feel good, but it also needs to sound good. And so to me, making sure that my car sounds sporty is one of my top priorities. So today's video is going to touch on one of the easiest things that you can do to your car to make it sound really good, and that is change the muffler from your OEM noise restricted muffler to an appropriate sport muffler. So welcome back to our channel, guys. This is Shanu at InnoKinetic, here to talk about my experience with exhaust systems and mufflers in particular. If you share my opinion about the sound of a car and how it is so key to the overall pleasure that you get when driving it, then you'll enjoy this video, because I think it's going to be one that really draws upon all my experience in this space. The first sport muffler I ever put on a car was on a 93 325i BMW, and it was a B&B tri-flow exhaust, and that thing sounded great when my foot was in it, but boy did it drone. Stacy used to joke about she could hear me coming from blocks and blocks away, and she was 100% right. That thing was way too damn loud. So anyhow, it sounded great when your foot was in it, but it droned. So when I later bought a 99 E36 M3, I decided not to put a B&B on the car. I chose an Italian brand called Super Sprint, and their system was, again, very high quality system like the B&B, but it didn't drone. When my foot was in it, it sounded great, but it didn't drone when I was cruising on the freeway. So that was my first lesson in proper selection when it comes to a sport muffler. Loud is not always good. A tuned muffler is critical in achieving the right sound. Nowadays, you can hear a lot of people just putting in straight pipes, even on exotics. And frankly, to me, it doesn't sound musical at all. In fact, it sounds horrible. I hate it. I hate listening to some of these cars out there that just are obnoxious. And as you probably have seen, there's more and more states or counties that are enacting these noise rules to crack down on some of these overly loud systems. So some of these clowns that are just putting in straight pipes that ruin things for the rest of us, but something to be aware of that is happening out there right now. So anyhow, where did I kind of learn about mufflers? Well, certainly from some of my own personal experience on my own personal cars, but as I started Sector 111, I scanned the market looking for options. The first systems that I actually started to offer were from Quicksilver. Also then Arcray. I was turned on to this Japanese brand called Arcray through my friends at Toy Box 48 and Garage Shamaya. That's where I was really introduced to a very, very high quality exhaust system. The Japanese make some of the absolute best systems on the planet, okay? Arcray had several different systems. The dual can system that is one of my absolute favorites that exits through the diffuser, but they also had single tip systems that had a very unique sound and frankly have a bit of a cult following because they're awesome. But they also were the first to introduce a dual tip system that exited above the diffuser that mimicked the 111S, or also similar to like the Porsche Carrera GT, which is, in a lot of our minds here, one of the best sounding, engines and cars ever from the factory. The exhaust note on a Carrera GT, unbelievable. But that look, Arcray were able to achieve in their dual tip exhaust that we used to sell in both stainless and titanium. Well, a similar system that we offered was also another really boutique brand from Japan called MS Racing. Very much produced by an artisan. We got that through Kawahara Motorsports. What else was out there? Of course, most people are very familiar with the Stage 2 system that Lotus dealers were installing on cars, on the Elises and Exiges. So we had developed a lot of experience. Larini, I forgot Larini. We were actually Larini's dealer and distributor in the U.S. on the Lotus market for many, many years. So I'd even visited their factory in the countryside of the southwest of England, I think Columpton, if it was, I think that's where it was. Anyhow, Larini have their exhaust made by a company called Phoenix Exhaust Systems, and so I've been to their factory as well. So our Craze systems produced in Japan. I've been to their factory. Larini's in England, of course, in the U.S. as well. We found a very good brand, private label manufacturer here that we have become very devoted to because of the quality of their systems, and that's where we got our original track pipe for the Lotuses. We did systems for the Solstice and Sky from those guys, for the Alfa Romeo 4C as well. In fact, on the 4C is where we were introduced to Helmholtz chambers. I'll talk to you about that a bit later. I naturally became a bit of an exhaust snob. All this experience with all these different manufacturers, having had a bunch of different types of cars, demanding a particular sound that I wanted when I drive, it turned me into an exhaust snob, and I'm very particular about that. And so when we went to develop our own systems, I kind of drew on that experience from these different manufacturers that I had dealt with already. So what should you look for when you're looking in to choose a muffler for your car? Well, obviously sound matters, and there's lots of very range of different sound quality. Part of that is the drone that I've talked about that I like to avoid because I can't stand it any longer. The construction of the muffler matters too, whether it's how it's built, how the welds look, but as well as the materials that are selected. You've got mild steel, you got stainless, you've got titanium, all sorts of different materials that can potentially be selected. Things that you can consider. And those, of course, will affect the weight of the muffler. And that, to me, is certainly on a lightweight car, one of the smartest reasons to change out from an OEM muffler to something in the aftermarket that generally can save you anywhere from 10 to 15 pounds or more. And then, frankly, the final consideration really is fitment. Whether you want a system that bolts on, exits like a stock system. So, for example, on the Lotus Elise or Exige, exits through the diffuser, or you may choose to have a system that is different, exiting above the diffuser, whether it's a single tip system or a dual tip system. So these are the kind of considerations that you should have. So let's talk a bit about drone, because that's a bit of a thorn in my side when it comes to exhaust systems. Some people actually don't really mind drone. Maybe they don't hear it as much. Maybe it's because I got tinnitus and this constant ringing in my ears. The last thing I want is drone on top of that. And so I've become very particular about choosing systems that don't drone. Generally, the louder the system, the deeper the frequency, the chances are you're going to have a bit more drone. So how did we manage to get drone out of our exhaust systems? Well, in the case of our Sonic Furies, we went with a manufacturer who has the ability to develop mufflers with Helmholtz chambers in them. Our supplier originally did a system for us for the Alfa Romeo 4C. For some of you that may know about the 4C, the original launch edition cars came with no muffler. It was essentially a straight pipe from the turbo, effectively. Well, that car droned terribly when you're cruising on the freeway from the factory, frankly. We came up with a muffler that had a Helmholtz chamber, and the sound improved dramatically. In fact, we have a quote from one of our clients that is an executive in the automotive industry that was overjoyed with how good the exhaust sounded in his 4C after he switched to our system. So on the Elise, similar scenario. We actually handed our car over to our supplier. They put mics all over the car to record the frequencies that this car was putting off, and then they were able to design a muffler can with a Helmholtz chamber in it that essentially filtered out the unwanted frequencies, and those were the lower frequencies that were prevalent when you were cruising on the freeway in 6th gear at 70 miles an hour. So we were able to, through a fully mechanical system, create something that was straight through design, no restriction, that, or I should say reduced restriction from normal, that didn't drone. But when you put your foot in it and got on the second cam, it just shrieks like a banshee. So anyhow, that's certainly one technique. Our Cray used a different technique on their single tips. They actually reduce the diameter of the pipe running through, and then they put a break in the muffler itself, in that pipe, I should say. And by using those two techniques, they tuned the sound. So our Cray single tip has a very, very unique sound. Unlike any other system out there, and it has a cult following. I mean, it was one of my absolute favorite, and remains still one of my favorite systems for a naturally aspirated car. An amazing exhaust note. But when you reduce the diameter of the pipe through the muffler can, you're also making it a bit more restrictive, and on a supercharged car, not a great way to go. So anyhow, on our Sonic Furies, we chose to keep a 2.5-inch straight design, so we didn't have any restrictions. But by using a Helmholtz chamber, which is frankly a bit more sophisticated, we were able to then filter out the drone. So anyhow, when you are selecting a muffler for your car, sport muffler for your car, these are the things to think about. Like we talked about, what's the sound that you would prefer? What's the construction of the system? Are they using good manufacturing techniques? Are the welds, really nice? Have they selected a material that is proper? Stainless is what I generally recommend for the vast majority of people, as it has the best balance of price point and durability. Titanium is certainly very, very sexy. Generally speaking, it doesn't have the lifetime. And so if you choose a titanium muffler for your car, make sure that you inspect it on a regular basis, because it generally doesn't hold up as long. Weight, of course, weight. Choose, a sport muffler that can help reduce the weight on the car. That's always an added benefit. And then, of course, decide on the fitment that makes the most sense for you. When we introduced the naked rear on these Lotuses, it was to basically support a single tip system that came out above the diffuser. We like the fact that they did this in Japan. We like the fact that it also helped in other ways. It helped reduce the weight further. It also allowed heat to come flushing out the back. But that particular look was something really driven by, frankly, track day use of the cars. And something we actually took some lumps. We had some market pushback in the early days when we first introduced it, but now you can see it's something that is pretty commonplace. I mean, you can frankly see cars of other brands, even Lamborghinis, pulling off the rears of their cars to display the exhaust systems. So anyhow, there's our video for the week on how to consider a sport muffler for your car. Feel free to ask any questions down below, or even book a session with me. Go to our website. You can lock in some time to talk to me about these issues if you've got more detailed questions that you want to answer. Also, subscribe to our newsletter, okay? Subscribe to this channel as well if you like, but our newsletter is also full of good information about products, the events that we're hosting, different things that we want to get out to the market. So thank you for watching. We'll see you guys next time.